Today, we're diving into the world of scientific research. More specifically, some thought-provoking ideas from neuroscientist Stefano Sensi.
Right.
He really digs into the unintended consequences of how we do science these days, you know?
Yeah.
You shared his talk with us, and it seems like you're wondering if this whole publish or perish thing is actually helping or hurting the search for knowledge.
Well, yeah, I think what's so striking about Dempsey's work is that he doesn't just critique the current system, but he offers this historical perspective to show how much the scientific landscape has actually changed, like over time.
Yeah, he talks about this shift from what he calls a golden age of science, particularly after World War II, to what we have today.
Yeah, and he argues that, in that post-war period, there was this palpable sense of excitement, a real drive to explore the unknown. Scientists were often driven by curiosity, they were passionate about their fields, and less fixated on these publication metrics.
Which isn't to say that publishing wasn't important.
Right.
But Sensen suggests it wasn't the primary motivator. It was really about scientists were focused on these big questions, groundbreaking research, and then, the publications they naturally followed.
And this period yielded incredible discoveries, right? I mean, you think about everything from the Spirit race to the breakthroughs in antibiotics. It makes you wonder, did that environment, that freedom to explore, contribute to that burst of innovation?
Yeah. It really makes you think. But then Sensi argues, things began to change. He points to the late 90s as this turning point where market forces began to heavily influence the direction of scientific research.
Exactly. Universities were suddenly competing for funding like never before.
Yeah.
Researchers were pressured to secure grants, and scientific output was increasingly measured by its potential market value.
Right.
It became less about expanding knowledge for the sake of it and more about generating something that could be, commercialized, patented,
And that leads us to what Sensi calls the data explosion, right? This massive surge in the number of scientific papers being published year after year.
No way.
But is it real innovation?
That's the key question. And Sensi highlights a study that found that while the volume of publications has absolutely skyrocketed, the rate of genuinely novel discoveries has actually plateaued.
Wow.
It's like we're drowning in data, but are we any closer to uncovering truly groundbreaking insights?
Right.
So this whole publish or perish thing,
Yeah.
Sensi goes on to explore some of the unintended consequences of that.
It's a great segue because I was really curious about that. He seems concerned that this intense pressure to publish actually hinders quality research.
Absolutely. He argues that this relentless focus on quantity over quality has led to these shorter papers, often filled with excessive supplementary material.
Right.
It's like they're trying to mask this lack of substantial findings with sheer volume.
And he also points out that this pressure, it affects peer review, which is supposed to be the quality control mechanism in science.
Exactly. If researchers are just bombarded with papers to review on top of their own research and teaching responsibilities, it's really no surprise that the quality and depth of peer review might suffer.
Right.
And this creates a system where, a potentially flawed research could slip through the cracks.
It makes you wonder how many really interesting research avenues aren't being explored.
Right.
Because researchers feel this pressure to publish quickly and often,
Right.
even if the findings aren't, groundbreaking.
That's a critical point. It's not just about, the volume of publications, but the types of questions being asked and the rigor with which they're investigated,
Right.
you know?
And then there's the whole issue of metrics, like the impact factor,
Right.
which Sensi argues is this flawed way to assess a researcher or their work.
He makes a compelling case. While the impact factor is intended to reflect a journal's overall influence, it doesn't necessarily speak to the quality of the individual articles published within it.
No.
A few highly cited papers can really skew the entire metric.
So a researcher's work might appear more impactful simply because they published in a high-impact journal,
Right.
even if their specific research, wasn't groundbreaking.
Precisely. And even the hate index.
Right.
Which aims to measure a researcher's overall influence by considering both the number of publications and citations, has its shortcomings as well.
I thought the H index was supposed to be a more nuanced metric, though. How was that one gamed?
Well, Sensi talks about this emergence of what are called self-citation rings.
Right.
These are essentially groups of researchers who agree to cite each other's work
Wow.
to artificially inflate their indexes.
Wow, that seems like a lot of effort to manipulate the system.
It really highlights the unintended consequences, I think, of relying too heavily on any single metric, right?
Right.
Instead of fostering collaboration and pushing the boundaries of knowledge, this focus on metrics really incentivizes competition.
Right.
You know?
And that ties back to his point about the data explosion, right? This competitive environment might actually be hindering scientific progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of collaborating and sharing data openly, researchers might be more inclined to hoard their findings or even cut corners in a bid to be the first to publish.
Right, right. So we've talked about the pressure to publish, the flaws in how we measure scientific impact. But then Sensi takes it even further by digging into the economics of scientific publishing.
Yeah, and this is where his critique, I think, really hits a nerve. He argues that the current system, rather than, serving the scientific community, actually exploits it for profit.
Yeah, I'll admit that caught my attention too. How does he make that case?
Well, consider this, right? Researchers are the ones doing the bulk of the work, right?
Right.
They're designing and conducting the studies, analyzing the data, writing the papers, and often even peer reviewing each other's work, all essentially for free.
Right, because the idea is to share knowledge, advance their fields, right?
Yeah.
It's about the pursuit of scientific understanding, not necessarily financial gain.
Exactly, exactly. But here's the rub, right? Those same researchers often have to pay to access the research they've contributed to. They need subscriptions to journals, or they have to pay these hefty fees to make their own work open access.
So it's like they're giving away their work and then having to buy it back.
That's the irony that Sensi highlights. And he points out that a small number of publishing companies control a vast majority of scientific journals, and they generate huge profits from this system. While researchers are struggling to secure funding for their labs and pay their staff, these publishing companies are reaping the financial rewards.
It does seem like a system that benefits the publishers more than the scientists. And Sensia argues that this system isn't just unfair, but it's actually driving talented people away from research.
That's right. He cites a study that found a significant decrease in the career longevity of researchers, facing limited job security, intense pressure, and often poor compensation. Many brilliant minds are leaving academia for other fields.
It's such a loss. I mean, these are the people who could be making groundbreaking discoveries,
Right.
but it sounds like they're being squeezed out by a system that isn't designed to truly support them.
Which is, I think, what makes his call to action all the more important.
Right.
Sensi urges both scientists and the public to kind of rethink the values that drive scientific research.
Yeah.
He advocates for a shift towards transparency, collaboration, and a renewed focus on quality over quantity.
So where do we go from here? What are some of the potential solutions that Sensi proposes?
Well, he highlights several encouraging trends, like the rise of open access publishing,
Right.
where research findings are freely available to everyone.
Yeah.
There's also this growing use of preprint servers where scientists can share their findings, directly without the delays and gatekeeping of traditional journals.
It sounds like these alternatives could really help to break down the barriers to knowledge sharing and make scientific research more accessible.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah.
Sensi also points to the success of, large-scale collaborations like the CERN project in physics as a model for how, researchers from different institutions and disciplines can work together to achieve these ambitious goals.
It's fascinating to consider how these different models might shape the future of science. And then, of course, there's the looming influence of artificial intelligence, right?
Right.
Sensi ends his talk with this really thought-provoking question about the role of human scientists in an age of increasingly sophisticated AI.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a question we can't ignore. As AI becomes more capable of analyzing data and even generating research, what will that mean for human researchers?
Wow.
Will we embrace these tools to augment our own abilities and kind of push the boundaries of knowledge even further?
Or will we be replaced by by algorithms that prioritize speed and efficiency over the kind of deep creative thinking that has led to so many of humanity's greatest discoveries.
It's a question with no easy answers, but it's a conversation we need to have, and I think ultimately Sensi encourages us all to think critically about the values that we prioritize in scientific research, and to advocate for a system that supports the pursuit of knowledge
Right.
for the betterment of humanity.
It's a powerful reminder that science isn't just about data points and publications.
Hmm.
It's about human curiosity, collaboration, and the drive to understand the universe around us. And it's up to all of us to ensure that those values continue to guide scientific progress.
Yeah.